Welcome to the Cabinet of Science and Fiction.
Great to be diving in again.
Absolutely. In this deep dive, we continue with the series Chronicles of the Earth by Zecharia Sitchin and discuss his book Genesis Revisited, which was published back in 1990.
That's right. And you, our listener, shared this one with us. It's a really thought-provoking read.
It really is. And our mission today is to, unpack Sitchin's core idea here. Is modern science just catching up to knowledge that ancient civilizations somehow already possess, particularly when we look at our own solar system?
He wastes no time throwing out some really big questions, doesn't he? Right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah. Things like, was Adam the first test tube baby? Eve the first organ transplant recipient? It's pretty wild stuff.
And were Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed by, nuclear fission? Did they have computer printers 5,000 years ago? I mean, these are provocative questions.
Definitely. But the one that really hooks into today's topic is, how did ancient peoples manage to describe our solar system, especially the outer planets, with an accuracy that, our modern space probes are only just now confirming?
Exactly. That's central to Genesis Revisited. Sitchin's main argument is that the book of Genesis and, the older sources it drew upon, they contain this surprisingly advanced scientific understanding.
Knowledge that our civilization, our science, is only now rediscovering.
Precisely. It makes you stop and wonder, where did that ancient knowledge actually come from?
It really does. He basically frames it as a Genesis revisited, almost like we're revisiting or rediscovering this knowledge base, knowledge potentially held by a much older civilization here on Earth.
Or, and this is the really big leap for some, maybe even by beings from another planet entirely.
And it's not just about, solving scientific puzzles, although that's a huge part of the appeal.
Right, it goes deeper. Sitchin connects it all to humanity's origins or destiny, even the future habitability of Earth. He's tying past events, cosmic events, to our present and our future. It's ambitious stuff.
Okay, so let's start where he does in the book, looking at the hosts of heaven and his take on the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, he points out this interesting parallel. You have the biblical creation, story creation from a void, chaos, this primordial burst of light and energy.
And then you have modern astronomy's Big Bang model, the idea that the universe started from this incredibly dense point and expanded outwards.
The similarity is there, superficially at least. But Sitchin immediately asks the key question: how could ancient people possibly have known about something like the Big Bang?
Or, he suggests, maybe the biblical account isn't talking about the entire universe's origin. Perhaps it's more localized.
Exactly. Maybe it's describing the formation of our solar system, the creation of the firmament, as the Bible calls it. It really highlights how tricky it is to map ancient cosmology onto modern scientific frameworks.
It definitely makes you think about humanity's long-standing obsession with the sky. Sitchin really emphasizes this, how we've always looked upwards, seeking origins, seeking meaning.
And he was writing Genesis Revisited at a really exciting time for planetary science. Our ability to actually go and look had just exploded. He specifically calls out the Voyager 2 mission reaching Neptune in August 1989.
Yes, Voyager 2. That was a huge moment.
It really was a climax of that initial phase of planetary exploration. You had these incredible machines, Voyager 1 and 2.
But the size of a small car, right? Packed with instruments.
Yeah, cameras, sensors for all sorts of things, powered by a nuclear source so they could travel that far out. Relatively small computers by today's standards, but incredibly capable.
And sending back these faint whispers, these radio signals, across billions upon billions of miles.
That's where the Deep Space Network came in. These huge radio dishes around the world, managed by JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They had to capture signals so weak it's hard to even imagine.
And JPL turned that faint static into those incredible images and all that data. Groundbreaking stuff.
It's easy to forget how long that journey was. They launched way back in 1977.
12 years before the Neptune encounter.
Right. And the original plan was just Jupiter and Saturn, building on what the earlier Pioneer probes had found.
But the engineers and scientists got clever, didn't they, using gravity assists?
They did. They realized there was this rare alignment of the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. It only happens once every, 175 years or so?
Something like that. So they used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot Voyager 2 towards Saturn.
And Saturn's gravity to push it towards Uranus, and then Uranus's gravity to send it on its way to Neptune. Just brilliant navigation, a grand tour.
And when Voyager 2 finally got to Neptune in '89, it felt like the whole world stopped to watch.
It really did. News channels were cutting away from regular programming. You had these images coming back from this distant blue world. It was captivating. People were seeing Neptune, really seeing it for the first time.
That was the narrative, anyway, that this was humanity's first proper look. People kept mentioning it was only discovered in 1846.
Right, discovered mathematically because of tiny wobbles in Uranus's orbit. Someone calculated there must be another planet out there pulling on it.
So the Voyager flyby was presented as this totally new revelation, seeing its true colors, its features, for the very first time.
But here's where Sitchin throws a spanner in the works. He points out that just 2 months before that Neptune encounter, he'd published an article.
Oh, what did it say?
He basically said, hold on, Neptune was known in antiquity. And not only that, he predicted that the Voyager 2 data would actually confirm this ancient knowledge.
Wow, that's a bold claim to make right before the data comes in. Did he get specific?
Very specific. He predicted Neptune would be greenish-blue. He predicted it would be watery in nature. And he even predicted it would have spots that look like, and this is his phrase, marsh vegetation.
Greenish-blue, watery, marshy spots. Okay, so what did Voyager 2 actually find?
Well, first off, the color was spot on. A stunning greenish-blue planet. Its atmosphere was mostly helium, hydrogen, and methane, which accounts for the bluish tint.
And incredibly fast winds, right? Supersonic winds.
Some of the fastest winds recorded in the solar system. And yes, there were these huge, dark blotches, mysterious spots of varying colors churning in the atmosphere. The Great Dark Spot was the most famous one.
Okay, so greenish-blue, check. Spots, check. What about the watery part? I thought Neptune was a gas giant.
That was the assumption, like Jupiter and Saturn. But Voyager's data suggested something different. Below the thick atmosphere, scientists deduced there was likely a rocky core, surrounded by a vast layer described by JPL scientists as a slushy mix of watery ice, thousands of kilometers thick.
Watery ice, so a significant water component.
A very significant water component. And this rotating, partially conductive layer was thought to be responsible for generating Neptune's magnetic field.
Interesting. So greenish-blue, watery spots. Sitchin's predictions seem to line up pretty well.
They really do. And Voyager found more, too. Rings, for instance. Faint rings made of rock, dust, boulders, and at least 8 new moons orbiting Neptune.
8 new ones. Wow. Adding to the 2 they already knew about.
Right. Nereid and the big one, Triton. And Triton turned out to be one of the most fascinating objects in the entire solar system.
Triton, I remember seeing pictures. It looked strange, pinkish gray, and that weird orbit.
Exactly. It orbits Neptune backwards, a retrograde orbit which strongly suggests it was captured, not formed there. Voyager revealed it as a blue moon because of methane ice and a thin atmosphere. The surface was incredibly varied. Rugged areas, smooth plains.
And signs of activity. Volcanoes?
Cryovolcanism.
Yeah.
Volcanoes erupting plumes of nitrogen gas and dark icy material. Geologically active, even in the extreme cold out there. Hints of possible past liquid water, maybe even lakes.
That's amazing. And didn't it have some weird lines on it, too?
Yes. These strange, almost geometric features. Rough double lines forming right angles, rectangular shapes. Scientists still aren't entirely sure what caused those. They look almost artificial, though probably aren't.
So, back to Sitchin's predictions. Greenish-blue, watery, swampy spots. Voyager confirmed the color and the watery composition. What about the spots? Did they look like marsh vegetation?
Well, marsh vegetation might be stretching it literally. But the dark spots were certainly intriguing. Sitchin points out that NASA scientists themselves speculated about what they were. One description mentioned deep lagoons of organic sludge for Triton spots.
Organic sludge. Okay, that's getting closer to swampy.
And Bob Davis, reporting for the Wall Street Journal, mentioned the possibility of organic, carbon-based material being spewed out by Triton's cryovolcanoes. Plus, nitrogen in its atmosphere, like Earth's. It points to complex chemistry, at least.
So Sitchin felt vindicated by the Neptune encounter.
Very much so. He emphasizes that he'd first written about Neptune's association with water and swamps way back in his 1976 book, The 12th Planet. That was a year before Voyager 2 even launched.
Okay, predicting something like that 13 years in advance is, oh, it's either an incredibly lucky guess or something else is going on.
And Sitchin argues it wasn't a guess. He says his confidence came from what Voyager 2 had found earlier, during its flyby of Uranus in January 1986.
Ah, Uranus, the planet lying on its side. So what did Voyager find there that boosted his confidence for Neptune?
Well, Uranus itself was considered the prime example of a planet unknown to the ancients, discovered by Herschel in 1781 with a telescope.
Right. The common wisdom was ancients knew Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. That's it. End of list.
But Sitchin argues the Voyager data from Uranus challenged that. He believed it contained evidence suggesting that somehow Ancient people did know about Uranus, and maybe Neptune and Pluto, too.
The Uranus data is still puzzling scientists today, isn't it? That extreme tilt, the weird winds, the temperature being oddly
It's
uniform.
a strange place, and its moons are even stranger, especially Miranda. It looks like it was smashed apart and haphazardly reassembled. You mentioned the chevron feature.
Yeah, that massive right-angled cliff. And those racetrack-like ovals? Just bizarre.
Totally bizarre. But Sitchin zeroes in on two main findings from Uranus that he saw as direct confirmations of ancient texts. First, its color.
What color is Uranus?
A distinct greenish blue. Paler than Neptune, but definitely in that same color family. Unique in the solar system.
Okay, greenish blue. And the second finding?
Its composition. Again, the expectation was another gas giant. Yeah. But Voyager revealed Uranus isn't mostly gas. Beneath the atmosphere, there's this enormous ocean of superheated, superpressurized water.
An ocean.
On Uranus.
Thousands of kilometers thick, maybe 4,400 degrees Celsius, though under immense pressure so it stays liquid or slushy. Surrounding a rocky core that generates internal heat. It was a major surprise.
So a watery planet, essentially.
A very watery planet. And Sitchin describes seeing the first true color images of Uranus on TV and having this moment of recognition.
Recognition of what?
He said the color perfectly matched a Sumerian term, MSH-SIG, which he had translated years earlier in the 12th planet as bright greenish.
From ancient Sumerian texts, describing Uranus as bright greenish.
That's his claim, based on texts thousands of years old. And then there's the water connection. Sumerian texts, he argues, associated Uranus with water.
And Voyager found not just the internal ocean, but its moons. All the major moons of Uranus turned out to be composed largely of rock and ordinary water ice. A surprising amount of water ice way out there.
So for Sitchin, Uranus confirmed ancient knowledge. Greenish blue and watery.
Exactly. Modern science, via Voyager in 1986, had rediscovered what he believed the Sumerians knew thousands of years ago. And that confirmation is what gave him the confidence to make those specific predictions about Neptune just before its flyby 3 years later.
Okay, I can see the logic there from his perspective. If Uranus matched, why wouldn't Neptune? Which leads to this idea he discusses about Uranus and Neptune being twins.
Right. The Voyager flybys didn't just confirm individual details for Sitchin. They highlighted the profound similarities between the two planets, reinforcing an ancient description.
How so? What was the ancient description?
Well, first, interestingly, ancient texts often listed Neptune before Uranus, which makes sense. If you're approaching the solar system from the outside, you'd hit Pluto, then Neptune, then Uranus.
That's a subtle point. And the twin idea.
In Sumerian planetary lists, Uranus was apparently called Kakab Shanama, which Sitchin translates as planet, which is the double of Neptune, a twin planet.
And does the Voyager data back that up, twin planets?
Remarkably so. They're very similar in size. They share that distinctive greenish-blue color palette. They both have that massive water ice component in their interiors.
Both have rings and lots of moons, too, as we discussed.
Correct. And their magnetic fields are similarly weird, both tilted at extreme angles compared to their rotation. 58 degrees for Uranus, about 50 for Neptune. That's highly unusual.
Similar day lengths, too, right? 16, 17 hours.
Yep, very close. And Neptune, despite being much farther from the sun, is surprisingly warm, relatively speaking. It generates significant internal heat, just like Uranus, driving those fierce winds.
So temperature readings were similar, even though Neptune gets way less sunlight.
Exactly. JPL noted that, suggesting Neptune must generate more internal heat than Uranus does to compensate. It all points to them being fundamentally similar types of planets.
So you have the ancient Sumerian planet that is the double, and modern NASA saying Uranus is a close twin of Neptune.
Separated by maybe 6,000 years. It's a striking parallel. Sitchin's argument is clear. Modern science is playing catch-up in many ways to this ancient knowledge base.
Which brings us squarely to the Sumerians themselves, this civilization that just seemed to appear in Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, about 6,000 years ago.
Appeared seemingly out of nowhere with this incredibly advanced culture. They're credited with pretty much all the firsts of civilization.
The wheel, writing, schools, laws, medicine.
Wheeled vehicles, boats, kilns for bricks and pottery, complex metallurgy, textiles, organized religion, mathematics, and crucially for this discussion, astronomy. It's an astounding list.
And their astronomy wasn't basic stargazing, was it?
Not at all. Our fundamental astronomical concepts come directly from them. The idea of a celestial sphere, horizon, zenith, dividing the circle into 360 degrees, the ecliptic path the planets seem to follow.
Constellations, the zodiac, the names, the images, the division into 12 signs.
Even our timekeeping, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. That sexagesimal system is Sumerian, the basis of our calendar, too. It's foundational knowledge.
And they wrote it all down on thousands and thousands of clay tablets.
Everything from grocery lists to epic poems to, yes, detailed astronomical observations, star catalogs, planetary movements, manuals for predicting eclipses.
And texts specifically about the solar system itself?
Absolutely. Tablets listing planets orbiting the sun in the correct order, some even giving relative distances between them, and cylinder seals.
Ah, the cylinder seals, like visual snapshots of their cosmology.
Exactly. Tiny carved cylinders they rolled onto wet clay to make impressions. And some depict astronomical scenes. The most famous one is VA243 in the Berlin Museum.
What does that one show?
It's about 4,500 years old. And it clearly shows the sun in the center, not the Earth, with planets orbiting it. And crucially, it seems to show all the planets we know today, including representations of Uranus and Neptune, roughly in their correct relative positions beyond Saturn.
The sun in the center, 4,500 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, that contradicts the standard history of astronomy where Copernicus gets the credit much, much later.
It certainly does. And seeing Uranus and Neptune depicted, even schematically, thousands of years before telescopes, that's the core of Sitchin's evidence for advanced ancient knowledge.
But you mentioned earlier there are differences between the Sumerian picture and our modern one.
Right. It's not a perfect match. Two key differences Sitchin highlights. First, the position of Pluto.
Pluto! The oddball planet, or dwarf planet now. Its orbit is weird, right? Tilted, elliptical.
Very weird. So weird that many astronomers think it wasn't originally a planet, but maybe a captured moon, perhaps from Neptune.
Okay, so where did the Sumerians place Pluto?
Their depictions and lists consistently place Pluto, which they called Gaga, between Saturn and Uranus, not way out at the edge like we see it now.
Between Saturn and Uranus. That's completely different. How did they explain that?
Their cosmology actually tells a story about it. They described Gaga as originally being a moon of Saturn, its emissary. But due to later events, which we'll get to, it was flung out of Saturn's grip and eventually settled into its own independent, albeit strange, orbit around the sun.
So they had this idea of celestial mechanics, planets and moons shifting orbits over time.
It seems so. And understanding that the solar system wasn't static, that moons could become planets. Which is interesting because modern astronomy is exploring similar ideas.
Like Titan maybe being an aborted planet, or Triton being captured?
Exactly. Voyager data has fueled speculation about these dynamic processes. Sitchin argues these modern discoveries are actually rediscoveries, and the ancient explanation for Pluto might still hold clues.
Okay, so Pluto's position is one difference. What's the second?
The second, and arguably the biggest difference, is that the Sumerian model includes an additional large planet, a planet located between Mars and Jupiter.
Where the asteroid belt is now.
Precisely. They call this planet Nibiru, which means planet of crossing. It's consistently described as the 12th member of the solar system, sun, moon, and 10 planets by their count.
And this Nibiru, it's not there now, obviously. What did they say about it?
They described it as having a huge, highly elliptical orbit. It spends most of its time way out in deep space, but every 3,600 Earth years or so, it swings back through the inner solar system, passing between Mars and Jupiter.
3,600 years, that's a long time. And this is the planet from Sitchin's first book title, the 12th planet.
That's the one. And according to the Sumerian texts, as Sitchin interprets them, this planet Nibiru is the home world of the Anunnaki.
Those who from heaven to earth came.
Yes, beings who visited Earth in the distant past. Sitchin connects this name to similar terms in the Bible, like the Anakim or the Nephilim in Genesis.
The giants, or fallen ones?
Right, beings who came down from the heavens. And the Sumerians explicitly state that all their advanced knowledge, astronomy, math, everything, was given to them by these Anunnaki visitors from Nibiru. So Sitchin's interpretation is that this Sumerian superknowledge wasn't developed by Sumerians, but taught to them by extraterrestrials.
Essentially, yes. He posits the Anunnaki were a civilization vastly more advanced than us, capable of space travel hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe around 445,000 BC.
And Nibiru itself, with its long orbit, would have served as a kind of moving observatory for them, allowing them to study the whole solar system over millennia.
That's part of his thinking. It explains how they might have gained such detailed knowledge of all the planets, including the outer ones.
Okay, but why would these Anunnaki come all the way to Earth, and repeatedly every 3,600 years when Nibiru came close? What was the motivation?
According to Sitchin's reading of the texts, it was driven by a crisis on Nibiru, an environmental catastrophe. Their atmosphere was deteriorating, making life difficult.
So they needed something from Earth to fix their planet.
Specifically, gold. The text suggests they needed vast quantities of gold to pulverize into a fine dust and suspend in their upper atmosphere, creating a shield to reflect sunlight and radiation.
Gold dust as an atmospheric shield. That sounds futuristic, like the gold film on astronaut visors.
Exactly that kind of principle. So they identified Earth, the seventh planet, counting inwards from the edge in their system as a source of gold. And they launched Mission Earth to get it.
Initially trying to get it from seawater, you said, in the Persian Gulf.
Yes, but that didn't work well. So they shifted to large-scale mining operations, primarily in southeastern Africa.
And Sitchin connects this to actual evidence of ancient mining in Africa.
He does. He cites archaeological studies, some funded by mining companies like Anglo-American, that found evidence of extensive mining activity, deep shafts, tools dating back tens, even hundreds of thousands of years.
It's like 35,000 BC, 60,000 BC, maybe even over 100,000 BC.
Those are the kinds of dates reported, much, much older than conventional history allows for sophisticated mining. And physicists later confirmed human habitation in the area dating back 80,000 to 115,000 years.
And Zulu legends mentioning ancient mines worked by artificial slaves.
He brings that in, too, from Credo Mutwa's work. Legends of first people creating workers for the mines in southern Zimbabwe, coinciding with a great star of war in the sky. It's a tapestry of connections he weaves.
So the Anunnaki are mining gold in Africa for millennia. Then what happens?
According to the narrative Sitchin pieces together, around 300,000 years ago, the Anunnaki miners mutinied. They were tired of the hard labor.
A labor dispute on a cosmic scale.
Pretty much. So the Anunnaki leaders, specifically their chief scientist and chief medical officer, came up with a solution.
Yeah.
Create a substitute workforce.
Create workers.
Using genetic engineering and in vitro fertilization techniques, they allegedly took existing hominids on Earth, perhaps Homo erectus, and upgraded their genetics using Anunnaki DNA to create, well, us, Homo sapiens.
So the Adamu, the first primitive workers, were created to work the gold mines.
That's Sitchin's interpretation of the Sumerian creation myths and how they connect to the story in Genesis. The 12th planet goes deep into this. Genesis Revisited focuses more on the science implied, the genetics, the technology.
He's arguing that modern science, like genetics, is just now proving the feasibility of what these ancient texts described.
Exactly. That the path to our future is littered with clues from our past, left by the Anunnaki. And that they eventually gave humanity more knowledge after our relationship changed.
And he believes more evidence for Nibiru itself will emerge.
He was confident it would. He argued that finding Nibiru wouldn't just be finding another planet, it would be confirmation of intelligent extraterrestrial life visiting Earth for hundreds of thousands of years.
The implications would be staggering for religion, politics, science, everything.
Absolutely world-changing. That's the scale Sitchin was working on.
Okay, let's shift back to the cosmic scale. You mentioned Edward Stone from the Voyager program acknowledging the importance of collisions in shaping the solar system.
Right. That became much more accepted after Voyager showed the battered state of moons around Uranus and Neptune. Collisions weren't just minor events, they were major sculptors.
And Sitchin says the Sumerians knew this 6,000 years ago, centering their whole cosmology around a massive collision.
Yes, the event they call the Celestial Battle. He argues it's the central creation story in their texts, explaining not just Uranus and Neptune's oddities, but the origin of Earth, the Moon, the asteroid belt, and even comets.
Where is this story found?
The most complete version we have is on 7 clay tablets, written in Akkadian, the language of the Babylonians and Assyrians who inherited Sumerian culture. It's often called the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. Sitchin interprets this text not just as myth, but as a sophisticated cosmogony, an account of the solar system's formation and evolution.
An account that describes the system before the battle itself, and its aftermath.
Exactly. And he claims it explains things that still puzzle modern astronomy, and that recent scientific findings increasingly support the ancient narrative.
Before Voyager, the view was more of a calm, clockwork solar system, right? Mostly settled down after formation.
Pretty much. Governed by gravity, occasional stray comet or asteroid. The asteroid belt was a bit weird. Bode's law suggested a planet should be there.
Bode's law, that mathematical progression of planetary distances.
Yeah, it kind of works out to Jupiter, then breaks down. It hinted a planet was missing between Mars and Jupiter, but the asteroids didn't seem massive enough and no one knew what could have destroyed it.
But then Voyager got to Uranus in '86, and that tilted, battered system changed things.
It made collisions undeniable. Uranus's extreme tilt, was it born that way or knocked over? The moons provided clues.
Orbiting the tilted equator, suggesting they formed after the tilt or were dragged along.
Right. And their composition was weird, too. Remember the density. Inner moons, less dense than outer moons. The opposite of what you'd expect if they formed gradually with the planet.
And the rings were super dark, not icy like Saturn's, made of carbon-rich primordial tar.
That's how scientists describe them. Dark, warped, eccentric rings. Plus those small, dark inner moons acting as shepherds. It all screamed aftermath of violence.
Like Ellis Minor from JPL saying an intruder probably smashed a large moon.
Yes. And the ring debris orbiting faster than the planet rotates. How did it get that energy? A massive collision seemed the only explanation.
So the consensus became Uranus got hit hard early on, probably by something Earth-sized maybe 4 billion years ago.
Uranus took a tremendous hit, as Gary Hunt put it. But, as Sitchin notes, science didn't identify the hitter. Who was the intruder? Where did it come from?
Which brings us back to Neptune, where its oddities, Nereid's weird orbit, Triton's capture separate events, or part of the same cosmic billiard game.
Nereid was already known to be strange. That incredibly tilted, eccentric orbit. Its irregular shape, one side bright, one side dark.
Ooh, suggesting it had been messed with, impacted.
That was the conclusion researchers like the Schaeffers came to. Something big hit the Neptune system, disrupting Nereid and Triton. Maybe Neptune originally had a normal moon system that got scrambled.
And the dark material on Nereid could be debris from the impactor, especially since Voyager found the new small moons were also very dark and irregular.
It fits the pattern. And then Triton, with its retrograde orbit, the leading theory became that it was captured.
Captured after colliding with one of Neptune's original moons, knocking it out and losing enough energy to get caught.
That was the Caltech model. And Voyager data, showing Triton's internal heat and surface activity, supported a high-energy capture event.
But again, the question remained. Where did Triton come from? Where did the thing it hit come from? Where did Uranus's impactor come from? No connection made.
Not in mainstream science at the time, which is why Sitchin felt the ancient texts held the key, providing a single, unifying event.
The celestial battle.
The celestial battle. An event, he argues, described in the Enuma Elish, that explains not only the weirdness of Uranus and Neptune, but the formation of Earth, the Moon, the asteroid belt, and comets. All in one go.
Okay, lay it out for us. What is the Sumerian story of the celestial battle, according to Sitchin's interpretation?
It starts with the solar system in its infancy, maybe 4 billion years ago. We had the Sun, Apsu, Mercury, Mumu, and a very large, watery planet where the asteroid belt is now, called Tiamat.
Tiamat, the maiden of life. Okay.
Then planetary pairs formed outwards. Venus, Lahamu, and Mars, Lamu, between Mercury and Tiamat. Then the giants Jupiter, Kishar, and Saturn, Anshar. And beyond them, Uranus, Anu, and Neptune, Ea.
And Pluto.
Pluto, Gaga, was there too, but initially as a moon of Saturn, an emissary.
So a fairly orderly system. Then what happens?
An invader appears. A large planet coming in from deep space, drawn into the solar system by the outer planet's gravity. The Sumerians called it Nibiru. The Babylonians later called it Marduk.
Nibiru Marduk, the 12th planet, entering the system.
Yes. Neptune, he whose house is water, is the first to really pull it in. The text says Ea brought it forth. Nibiru Marduk is described as impressive, bright. As it passes Neptune and Uranus, gravitational interactions happen.
Like what?
Sparks, lightning are mentioned. Nibiru might have gained moons or pulled them off Uranus and Neptune. The text mentions its perfect limbs, difficult to perceive, and 4 its eyes, 4 its ears, perhaps sensor arrays or natural features.
And its passage affected the existing planets.
Definitely. Near Neptune, Nibiru might have bulged, maybe calving off material that became Triton, explaining its weird retrograde orbit, because Nibiru was likely orbiting clockwise, opposite the other planets.
Retrograde intruder explains retrograde moon. Okay.
As it passed Uranus, Anu, more interactions. The text says Anu brought forth and begot the 4 winds. Sitchin speculates these could be Uranus's 4 main moons, formed or perturbed during the encounter that also tilted Uranus itself. Nibiru gained more satellites here, too.
So this first pass through the outer solar system explains the oddities of Uranus and Neptune, their moons, their rings, their tilts.
That's Sitchin's argument. Then Nibiru Marduk continues inwards, drawn by the immense gravity of Saturn, Anshar, and Jupiter, Kishar.
What happens at Saturn?
A close encounter, described as a kiss. This encounter significantly altered Nibiru Marduk's trajectory, its orbital destiny, and it had a huge effect on Saturn's main moon at the time. Gaga Pluto.
This is where Pluto gets ejected.
Yes. The gravitational pull and retrograde motion of Nibiru flung Gaga away from Saturn, sending it careening towards the inner solar system before eventually settling into its distant, inclined orbit beyond Neptune. That's the Sumerian origin story for Pluto.
Wow. Okay, so Nibiru has disrupted Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, created Pluto's orbit. Where is it heading now?
On a collision course, inevitably, with the ancient planet Tiamat. Between Mars and Jupiter, Tiamat's region was already unstable, gravitationally pulled by the giants outside and the smaller planets inside.
And Tiamat had moons of its own.
A whole host of them, described as furious, raging monsters, 11 main ones. The largest, Kingu, was growing rapidly, almost becoming a planet in its own right, about to achieve its own solar orbit. Tiamat had exalted Kingu.
So a system ripe for a clash. Nibiru-Marduk, with its 7 satellites, or winds, versus Tiamat and her 11 moons, led by Kingu.
Exactly. And a crucial point Sitchin emphasizes from the text. The main planets, Nibiru and Tiamat, did not collide directly. It was Nibiru's satellites that did the damage.
Ah, okay. So what happened in this first encounter?
Nibiru-Marduk approached Tiamat. It deployed its main satellites, the 4 winds, north, south, east, west, like a net to trap Tiamat. It used other winds acquired near Uranus, and it unleashed other weapons, lightning, a magnetic field net, a terrifying halo.
Like a cosmic battle deployment.
Very much so. As they drew close, Nibiru scanned Tiamat's interior, perceived Kingu's plans. Then it attacked with its net and fired divine lightning, maybe energy beams, at Tiamat.
What effect did this have on Tiamat?
She became filled with brilliance, suggesting heating up, slowing down, swelling. Breaches opened in her crust. Then Nibiru launched its main satellite, the Evil Wind, right into one of these breaches.
A direct hit by a moon.
Yes, it tore Tiamat apart from the inside, split her inwards, cleft her heart. This first impact essentially shattered Tiamat, extinguished her life.
What happened to Tiamat's moons?
Most of them were shattered, thrown out of their orbits by Nibiru's passage and gravitational field, sent flying in the opposite direction. The text implies this is the origin of comets, with their highly elliptical, often retrograde orbits.
And Kingu, Tiamat's main moon.
Kingu survived the initial onslaught, but was stripped of its independent destiny. Nibiru captured it, turned it into a mass of lifeless clay, maybe stripping its atmosphere and water, reduced its size, and bound it gravitationally to orbit the damaged remains of Tiamat.
So Tiamat is shattered, her moons scattered as comets, Kingu captured and reduced. What happens next?
Nibiru-Marduk continues on its new orbit, now gravitationally bound to the sun. It completes the circuit, passes the sun.
Its first perihelion passage.
Right. Then it heads back out. On its return journey, it comes back to the scene of the battle, to the broken Tiamat. The text says, "The Lord paused to view her lifeless body, to divide the monster he cleverly planned. Then, like a muscle, he split her into 2.
Split Tiamat in 2. How?
Another impact, this time from Nibiru's Northwind satellite. It struck the upper half of Tiamat, her skull, smashing it off and pushing this large fragment, along with the captured Kingu, into a completely new orbit, closer to the sun.
And this fragment became...
This fragment became the Earth, and its captured, diminished satellite, Kingu, became our moon.
Earth and moon formed from half of Tiamat and her main satellite, knocked into a new orbit. Wow, what about the other half of Tiamat?
The lower part, her tail, was utterly pulverized by the impacts. Nibiru-Marduk hammered these pieces into a bracelet in the sky, positioned in Tiamat's original orbit between Mars and Jupiter.
The asteroid belt.
The asteroid belt. The Great Band, as the Sumerians called it, formed from the smashed remains of Tiamat's lower half.
So the celestial battle created Earth, moon, the asteroid belt, comets, and explains Pluto's orbit and the weirdness of Uranus and Neptune, all from one event involving an invading planet.
That's the comprehensive picture Sitchin draws from the Enuma Elish. After dealing with Tiamat and Kingu, Nibiru continued outwards, possibly tidying up the orbits of Neptune and Uranus, giving them their final configurations.
And Pluto Gaga got its final placement too.
Yes. Nibiru assigned it its final destiny in a hidden place in the outer solar system, beyond Neptune, making it the outermost planet USMI, he who shows the way, if you're entering the system.
And Nibiru itself, it established its own orbit.
A vast 3,600-year elliptical orbit, according to Sitchin. It crosses the asteroid belt, its abode in the firmament, at perihelion, and goes far out into the deep to its aphelion, its other abode called Ishara, home of the ruler.
So the final solar system, according to this ancient story, has Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, remains of Tiamat, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and the returning visitor, Nibiru.
That's the 12-member system Sitchin argues the Sumerians described, shaped by this colossal ancient battle, and he maintains that modern discoveries continue to corroborate this narrative.
Like Bode's law seeming to point to a missing planet where Tiamat was supposed to be?
Exactly. Bode's law works roughly out to Uranus if you include a spot for a planet between Mars and Jupiter. It breaks down for Neptune and Pluto. Sitchin notes his nephew, Amnon Sitchin, found that if you take the mathematical trick out of Bode's law and just look at the geometric progression of distances, it works almost perfectly for all planets out to Uranus if you remove Earth from its current position and instead put Tiamat, the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter.
So removing Earth and inserting Tiamat makes the spacing pattern consistent.
According to their analysis, yes. It shows a remarkably consistent ratio of increase in distances from Mercury, Venus, Mars, Tiamat asteroids, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. For Sitchin, this is mathematical proof supporting the Sumerian cosmogony that Earth wasn't originally where it is now, but was formed later from Tiamat.
That's quite a claim, rewriting planetary formation and history based on these ancient texts and mathematical patterns.
It is. And that's really the essence of Genesis Revisited, challenging conventional scientific timelines and suggesting that the deep past holds keys to understanding our present solar system, our origins, and perhaps even our future.
We've certainly journeyed through some mind-bending territory today, digging into Zecharia Sitchin's Genesis Revisited. His arguments for ancient astronomical knowledge, far exceeding what we thought possible, are definitely compelling.
From predicting Neptune's features before Voyager 2 arrived, to interpreting the Enuma Elish as a detailed account of the celestial battle that shaped our solar system, it's a narrative that challenges standard scientific models.
The parallels he draws between specific details in Sumerian texts and findings from modern space probes the colors and compositions of Uranus and Neptune, the strange orbits, the evidence of massive collisions. They certainly give you pause, makes you reflect on just how much we don't know about the distant past.
And it forces us to consider the implications. If ancient civilizations, or perhaps visitors they interacted with, possessed such incredibly advanced understanding of the cosmos, what does that truly tell us about our own history? About the potential for knowledge to be lost and rediscovered?
It opens up so many questions. This deep dive into Sitchin's work really just scratches the surface. We definitely encourage you, the listener, to explore these ideas further. Look at the evidence Sitchin presents, consider the counterarguments, and draw your own conclusions.
The mysteries of our past are vast, and thinking about these alternative perspectives definitely broadens the horizons of what we might consider possible for our future. It's a journey of discovery that continues.
Absolutely. Until next episode.